Welcome to another episode here at Speak Up Afrika. As we always say, to be informed is to be empowered, and to be empowered gives you leverage to be engaged better. And our conversation today falls nothing short in that space. So we have been having conversations with officials from Kenya Union of Gig Workers, and we are unpacking the gig economy, that ecosystem. Again, it has about a workforce of 1.2 million people, but there's still a bit of gray areas as to how we navigate this space. And today we want to look at contracts. How do we sign them? What do they mean to us? And to help me have this conversation and carry it is Dorothy. Dorothy, welcome to Speak Up Afrika. This is our space.
Thank you.
Welcome to our podcast. And we've been unpacking this gig economy space. And I think a very key player of the space is the worker themselves.
Sure.
And I think one of the place with misconceptions and misunderstanding is contracts. How do we sign them? What do they mean? So I think a good place for us to start the conversation is let's try and look at the key things that platform workers should look out before signing contracts. I know there's that place where hakunanga hata contracts, but let's start in the event that there's a contract, term of engagement. What are some of the things a gig worker should be looking out for?
Thank you, Wendy. Thank you for having me. So my name is Dorothy Chepkoech. Let me introduce myself.
For sure.
Yeah, so as you said, the contracts in this space are, first of all, they're not even contracts. They are terms of service. Yeah, most of them call them terms of service or service agreements. Yeah, so these are just agreements that the workers, they have to agree to continue into the platform now for them to get work. Yeah, but generally what they should look for is, say, ride hailing. They could look at the commissions or how accounts get deactivated, if there's any clauses. But I think the main problem with the contracts in this space mostly is they are too bulky. Yeah, they're too bulky. So you get, maybe a rider wants to sign into an account to be a rider, maybe in Bolt or Uber. They get the terms of, you see, the ones that come, like, you have to check a box, then you continue.
Yeah.
But not many people click on those links to read, because even if they click, you'll get like maybe 17 to 19 page documents just full of legal jargon. Yeah, so most of them don't read. And then another problem with contracts, especially for maybe content moderators and annotators in BPOs, is their contracts are vague. Yeah, so their contracts are so vague. The JDs, they don't get exactly what they're going to do. So maybe you're just told you'll be labeling AI or moderating content. But when they get, like, when they are now doing the actual job, the things they are doing, they just
ground virtually different.
Very, very different. Yeah. And then also, even if all these are reflected in the contract, people need the jobs, and the contracts are not negotiable. Yeah, so you can't say, okay, these, what does this clause mean to me, and can this be amended? Like, there's no one to ask, to negotiate with. So I'd say those are the biggest issues.
You know, as you speak, something crossed my mind. The reality of how many of us do actually sign and do actually read before signing terms of use and conditions. I mean, every other app comes up, someone says, try it out. You just go scroll down and say, I agree. You know, because honestly, sometimes really I ask myself, so what if I don't agree? and I need to use the app. Okay, fine, I don't agree, but at the end of the day, I need to use the app. So what really happens? And I think that should be a space we need to really unpack the do's and don'ts about that.
Yeah.
But let's pivot a bit, kidogo. You mentioned that they're not even contracts; they are terms of services.
Yeah.
And in this ecosystem, I think there's the labeling of independent contractors. They're not even workers or I don't know. But the terming is independent contractors. What does that mean to their rights as gig workers?
So the terming independent contractors is majorly what platforms adopt to define the working relationship that they'll have with the workers. And we tend to actually blame the government for this, because platform workers are not recognized as workers in Kenya by law. So when platforms come, they'll definitely choose the language that will favor them. So when they term these platform workers as independent contractors, it means that they don't get social protections. Yeah, so they don't get safety nets. They don't get they don't get health insurance. They don't get leave days. They don't get what have I forgotten? Contributions to their pension schemes. Yeah, unlike the traditional employer-employee relationships. Yeah, so that terming it's a loophole that these platforms use to evade responsibility.
Yeah. And I think so. Those are some of the challenges that are there in the lack of or even the bulk contracts that are there. And I want us to spend just a few minutes to try and unpack that. When they're operating in this online space, that in your local environment, you're not even considered within the work frames. Therefore, the terming independent contractors. So there are things like what you're saying, the safety nets. How does this affect the working hours, the conditions of work, and the reliability of being able to just get compensation when something goes wrong in your work environment? Because I know this heavily depends on the terms of engagement. For other people, they're stipulated in contracts. How does this affect when you're working in these platforms?
So let me say the absence of these clauses in the terms of service, it leaves the platform workers actually isolated. Yeah, because they actually don't get any of these social protections. So if anything goes wrong at work, they are alone. Like if a cab driver gets an accident, it's them to follow up with their insurance if they have any. So there's nowhere that the platform ingilias. Yeah. So because platforms say that they just give the platform. Yeah, they just give the platform for you to get work. But other than giving the platform, they go beyond their, I'd say, jurisdiction, because they control every aspect of how the workers get work, how they get paid, even how many hours they get to work. Because in as much as they say that platform workers have freedom, like you have freedom to choose how many hours you'll work, I think it's a false freedom. Yeah, if I may say, because if you work less hours, your ratings go low. Yeah, so you don't get you're not very visible. Yeah, if I may say, you're not very visible to clients. And also, if you cancel rides, let's say you don't want to work because you've been told you have the freedom, that also affects your ratings. Yeah, and eventually you may even get suspended. You may get suspended, or your account is deactivated. Yeah.
And Dorothy, it's interesting you say that. Most people, or young people, let me say, Gen Z going back, are growing in an environment where everyone wants to be their own boss. And so the thinking is, I don't want to be employed. I don't want an 8 to 5 that I'm physically going to an office. I would rather be an online worker. And it's quite unique that you mentioned that it's actually false freedom, because then for the number of hours you put in equally results to whatever output you will get, maybe in terms of pay or even growth in the industry. What would you say to a young person who has that thinking of, let me get into this space, I'll do my own thing the way I want, how I want, and thinking they can be their own bosses and run their own show the way they want?
Well, their dreams are not in vain, first of all. They can still be their own bosses, and I think that's why we are here, because those are things that we are trying to resolve. Yeah, so the good thing with this space is it's I'd say open to everyone. Yeah, there are less barriers to entry, really. Like, as long as you can get a phone, even just a phone, not necessarily a laptop, a phone, and you have internet, you can be a platform worker. Yeah, so it's really open to all. But even as they join this space, it's essential for them to know that this space is, it's actually sold as a side hustle, if I may say. And then everyone thinks that the problems they are facing are individual. Like, you think that those problems that you have are just yours, so you stay with your own problems. But if we actually come out and engage each other in dialogue, you find that the problems that we are facing are the same. So I tell these young people that when they join these spaces, they should also consider joining a union like KUGWO, because when we come together, that's when we'll get numbers and a voice to influence these policies that we're trying to influence to make this space better.
Yeah. Just before we come to the power of numbers, and those numbers are in unions, and now we have Kenya Union of Gig Workers. We mentioned that sometimes kwa ground vitu are different, This is the kind of job that has been sold to you with a very vague JD, and then you get to execution and you realize it's maybe way heavier, it's more exposing. What are some of the unique risks that domestic platform workers do face when it comes to especially safety and protection?
So you see, domestic platform workers, it means those workers that get jobs on the digital platform, but the work itself means you have to go to someone's house, so they have to work in someone's household. So first of all, the platforms don't vet the client, so you don't know the person that you're going to work for. So, like, how are they? You can find someone with anger issues, and anything can happen in that house, really. So in terms of security, they're really exposed. And then also there's something that I've been seeing online that is quite disturbing, the sexual harassment of domestic workers, especially women. So I was, just a few weeks ago, I was just scrolling reels, and then I came across a post. I don't know if I can say this on the pod.
Please, sure, go ahead.
Yeah, so I came across this post of some lady, and the caption was, me and my, quote unquote, it was in Kiswahili. So, me and my husband today will be eating our maid. Like, that is, it was very disturbing. Yeah, very disturbing. And then also you've seen posts in X about, I'd say, men, bachelors, especially, who say, like, when you get a mama fua, you get a mama fua, and you can get the complete package if you want to. Yeah, so I'd say there's really very, very high cases of sexual harassment in domestic work. And then also there's no channel to report those issues, because even if you report to the platforms, and then
what action is taken?
There's no action that is taken, because first of all, in the platforms, you don't get anyone that is going to engage you, like, to try and understand whatever you're trying to put across, because it's just codes, so you'll be getting automated replies. Yeah, so there's a lot of gray area around there.
And Dorothy, that's actually a sad occurrence that I know is not unique to most of this, especially ladies who are there, although we acknowledge that this could equally be happening to men. And it begs the question then, what causes these gaps that we are seeing? Because when we look at an estimate of 1.2 million people in the workforce, and yet, because I'm sure even on social media, when you go to the comment section, some people take it as gist, not with the weight that it carries, not valuing someone else's job, because this is someone's source of livelihood. In your opinion, what causes these discrepancies and the gaps that are there between the work, the platform, and the contracts?
So I think, in my opinion, it's basically just the legal frameworks. So I'd say the laws in Kenya, there are no clauses or there's nothing around digital platform work. And then also for the case of domestic workers, there's an ILO Convention, the ILO Convention 189, that was on decent work in domestic work. And then there's the other one on harassment, that is the C190. So these are conventions that would be really helpful if they were ratified in Kenya. But now you see these conventions are conventions of 2011 and 2019, but they have not been ratified. So it means there's no law around domestic work and protections. Yeah.
As a union, KUGWO, are there measures that are being put in place? Are there conversations that have started to ensure that in the foreseeable future, there's a difference that is coming in terms of even the simple protection for domestic workers?
Yeah, there are. Of course, these are policies that we are really trying to push for, but also in the Labor Day, the one that just passed in May, the president said that these conventions would be ratified. So we are hoping that they'll really get ratified, because it will make our work easier, if I may say. Yeah, because then these will be law, then there'll be frameworks of how to go about the harassment and all.
Yeah. Okay, let's throw a spanner into the works. We've had good leaders who say very good things, especially during
national functions.
Exactly, that we tutafanya, tutatenga, but when it comes to the implementation, there's that's where the biggest problem is, because it's said verbally or even stipulated on contracts, but it's not implemented. Is there goodwill from other stakeholders, government being included, because they are like major policy makers, in terms of making these reforms and ensuring this ecosystem functions better for its own people? From the experience that you've had, is there the goodwill and the willingness for them to give a listening ear, or we still have a long way to go?
We have a long way to go. We have a very long way to go, but I think it's better. It would be better if, first of all, these things are law, so that even if we have to go to court, we have things to quote. In court. But in terms of listening and really keeping the voices of the gig workers at the center of the policies, I am not so sure, but I hope it changes. So after the webinar that we had on 29th, so there's one doctor, not a medical doctor, but he's a policy consultant. So he normally engages with governments and other unions. So he was calling me and telling me that he was telling me he joined the webinar because he really wants to understand like what it is that KUGWO is doing. He wants to understand this gig work space, the digital platform space. So in my mind, I was like, I hope the government is doing the same. Yeah, because these are the policy makers. But if now they don't understand exactly what it is that is going on in this gig economy, then we risk having having policies that are not serving the gig workers.
Yeah. And I think that's something we've highlighted in previous conversations and even in the webinar.
Yeah.
The element of having a roundtable conversation about people that you're not including and giving them a seat on the table.
Yeah.
Because then it beats the purpose. Number one, there's no understanding of the ecosystem you're putting policies around. Number two, you're not including them to be a part of the conversations. But you are grateful that KUGWO is here, and we are hoping that the difference will be there. So there's algorithm, and this is a term that is greatly used in this system. So we have algorithm management, we have algorithm bias. This affects how contracts are stipulated and managed and brought about. So how is that influence? Because we've had conversations around algorithm management, and someone says, and we'll get to that, where accounts are deactivated, or you lose your platform of working because there's just that bias in the algorithm. So how does algorithm influence how contracts are quote unquote made, stipulated, and given?
So as I said, first of all, when you're getting into the platforms, so the service agreements, unlike the traditional employment where you would be given a contract, then you read, then ask for things to be clarified. So in this space, we don't have that. So you just get a unilateral contract pre-made. Yeah, then you have to, of course, you don't know all the clauses. Yeah, so you don't even know what is binding you. Yeah, so algorithms actually control everything in this space. Yeah, because it's, I'd say, the engine, not really the engine of, but probably the engine of the platforms. Yeah. So the algorithms will determine how you'll get paid. They will determine how do you get matched with work according to your ratings. They'll determine your visibility, like for the content creators and all. Yeah, so algorithms is it's actually the I'd say biggest challenge in this space. Yeah, but I think moving forward, we've seen many countries. We've seen other countries that have done good work around algorithms and transparency, because I think transparency would really help. Because one would want to understand, like, why. Well, I know you said we'll get there, but let me just give the example of why you were deactivated, for example. Yeah. So countries like the EU, they have a directive where platforms are required to be transparent. Like, their algorithms have to be very, very transparent. Someone has to understand exactly how they are getting paid. Like, okay, this commission, and then how is my hourly rate, calculated, and why am I getting these clients, like maybe short distance clients as opposed to long distance clients.
Okay, and I guess that's a good place for us to jump in. Case scenario, a driver his account has been deactivated, and I think it could be from a myriad of reasons. It could be a client who had just had a bad day and gave a bad review. It could have been out of personal reasons that they decided to keep shut their account. I mean, it could be anything in this space really that could cause for an account to be deactivated. With the lack of enough transparency in our country as we operate right now, what is the best way, or what then do they do after finding out that the account has been deactivated?
So sadly, there's actually so little that you can do. Yeah, because even if you raise if you want to raise a dispute, the best response that you'll get is, as I said, from a bot. Yeah. So first of all, when you get deactivated, you're not given like exact reasons why. And this is not just for maybe ride hailing. It's actually across platforms, even freelancers. So you just get an email that your account was suspended for or deactivated for fraudulent activities or suspicious activity. Well, you of course know you've not engaged in any suspicious activity, but you're not given explicit reasons like this is the suspicious activity that led to your account being deactivated. So that is one. There's no human review, I'd say. Yeah. So in terms of what to do, I really don't think there is.
So I remember we were having this conversation, if I'm not wrong, with Frida, or was it? Yeah, I guess so. And we brought out a case where you can wake up and maybe you've changed devices, or you have problems accessing your old account. For example, if you're doing writing, and you decide to open another account, all right, and you still continue the same job, execution excellently, but you can be flagged for fraudulent activities. So if you're deactivated or removed from the platform, that's it.
Yeah, if you're deactivated and you want to, it's like starting afresh. So you want to start again. You actually have to start building your profile from zero, like a newbie.
All over again.
Yeah, all over again. So you don't get your ratings. You don't get your job successes. Yeah. So you actually start from zero. Yeah, if I may say. But also, as I was saying, these are things that if really the government was that interested in this space, these are things that should already be in place. There should already be a digital platform work act in Kenya, because it's already been done in other countries like the Singapore, not this Singapore. The Singapore has an act, and in that act, it talks of data portability. So your ratings and your successes are attached to you as a person or the platform that you are working in. So that also helps, because some platforms are so exploitative. So you don't have to stay in this platform just because you have good ratings. You and your ratings can move to another platform. Yeah.
So your success is pegged on you as a person.
On you as a person.
Fantastic. I had written down that let's try and look at some of the frameworks that Kenya can adopt, because if we have countries that are already doing it and have gone ahead of us, it means then if we intentionally desire to do so, we can. So what are some of the changes that Kenya should adopt to ensure they prioritize the well-being and the protection of platform workers? I know you've mentioned like having an act in place, but I know we can look at a few more others.
Yeah, so as you said, we already have a benchmark. So we're not starting from zero as a country, because these are things that have been done in other countries. So, for example, the EU, there's a directive for European countries where I think first of all, that in the directive there's a clause on presumption of employment, where it says even if it's a platform, you offer matching to the client, so from the worker to the client, but you go beyond just matching. Then you control every aspect of how that work is done, how many hours one works, how they get paid, and also whether they continue to work, because this algorithm also fires you. Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah.
Yeah, so they say that if you go beyond just matching, you are presumed as an employer. Yeah, and that presumption, the platforms are also given leeway to prove that they're not the employers, but now the burden of proof lies on the platforms. So I think that would really help the independent contractors terminologies. Yeah, and then also in the EU directive, there is the clause on algorithmic transparency, where platforms have to be really transparent on everything about the platform in that work. So everything that they control, whether it's pay, how that pay is calculated, whether it's matching, as I had said previously. And also in cases of deactivation, they have to give explicit reasons. They are not just using vague clauses. Then there was also the issue of data portability, the one that I had talked about. So it's also in the EU directive that the ratings and job successes are attached to a person
and not
not just the platform. Then also the Singapore Act, the Singapore. Passionate about that one because we were promised Singapore.
Yes.
Being taken to Singapore. So the Singapore Act, there's the clause on CPF fund. CPF is a fund that is, I'd say in Kenya, it's equivalent to pension and housing. So the platforms are required to contribute to the CPF of their workers as well. So that would be really helpful in terms of the social benefits. So I think Kenya could adopt a model like that. And then there's also payment for injuries. So especially for the ride hailing and the delivery people. Yeah, there's that. So platforms, in cases of accidents and workers are injured, platforms they pay for that insurance, the cost. And then in case someone is permanently incapacitated or they die, they have to give a lump sum to either the family or the person. Yeah, so I think those are benchmarks that we could really adopt
and make a difference to it.
Yeah, and also, sorry, before you go.
No problem.
Also, I think it's important also for the government to, as I had said, the ratification of conventions. So in the upcoming ILC for 2026, there's a draft convention on decent work in the platform economy. And in that draft, ILO is defining what a platform economy is, not really platform economy, what a digital labor platform is, and who a digital worker is, So the terms that they use is, I'd say they are broad terms that are seeking to include also the broad nature of the gig platform, I'd say. Yeah. So if that convention is adopted by ILO, I really hope that the government will ratify. Because it would only be law once the government ratifies the convention. And I think that would be really helpful in dealing with these independent contractor terminologies. Yeah.
Make it simpler. You see, the gig economy, just like AI, hasn't started in this new rising.
Yeah.
It's been there since time immemorial, There was a mention that it started with the jazz artists, when they were going for gigs.
Yeah.
And we've grown, even in terms of workforce, we've really grown in the numbers. But the gap keeps widening in terms of scope of work, understanding of the ecosystem, and even protection of the same. With these gaps, because I want to tie it to, we have a government that promises taking us to Singapore. Yeah, previously we were going to Canaan, and quote unquote, we are benchmarking other countries. But when it comes down, Dorothy, to implementing what really affects us, we don't see much change. From your own perspective, do you think these gaps are deliberate? Is it ignorance, number one? And if at all, is it just a deliberate act that we are ignoring this set of workers?
So I'd say partly ignorance,
Mm.
mainly because the sector is mostly termed as informal. Yeah, so people, the policymakers don't even understand why they should be making laws for this informal sector. Yeah, and then on top of that, I'd say this is my unpopular opinion. Yeah, there are, I'd say, interested parties, who would be on the losing end if these things are passed, or if these conventions are ratified, or if laws that are supposed to control how platforms operate pass in Kenya. So
cartels.
Yeah, there are cartels everywhere. So yeah, of course. Yeah, I'd say this is Kenya. And anything you want is possible as long as you have the financial muscle
to do it.
Yeah.
So this ecosystem is a double-edged sword when it comes to what is not working. Yeah. So I think earlier on in the conversation we had a mention of people getting into this space, and because we need the money, we need to get by in life, Dorothy. So you're not even thinking about the terms and conditions, the contracts, what is stipulated, your rights, your what you like. Let me ingia first.
Yeah.
I'll figure it out as I go. All this to say there's a big contribution that is also being done by the workers themselves with the ignorance that they carry. Even as we look at how do we better then the environment and the kind of working terms that they have, I don't know if for sure workers understand also the weight that they have. And I would want you to speak into that, because some people take up these roles, you know what, as I wait for a job, let me be doing this. Not understanding that they actually, by their ignorance and nonchalantness, they're contributing to the downfall of that ecosystem.
Yeah, that's actually true, because most of the workers in this platform, when they get in at first, it's like a waiting place, as a way to get something better. Maybe they're waiting for formal employment, or maybe they want to start businesses. So they they get into the ecosystem as just a means of getting sustenance for, to them, a short period, before they transition into something else. But then, with time and with the high unemployment rates in Kenya, of course, you find that getting employment it's so hard, and also getting employment that pays you well is so hard. Yeah, so people end up staying in the ecosystem. And there was a study by Bolt. Yeah, there was a study by Bolt that was, it said that like over 50% of the people in the gig space in Kenya, the gig work that they are doing is their primary source of income. So it's the thing that pays rent, it puts food in the table, takes kids to school, really. So it's not, the reality is it's not a waiting space. Yeah, for better. It is what is there. Yeah. So another thing about this space is it's usually sold as side hustles. Yeah, and then there's so much isolation because there's no common workspace. So you'd be in your house with your laptop, you work alone. When your account is deactivated, there's no one that you can tell, by the way, my account was deactivated, what can I do? Like there's no social support, if I may say. So there's so much isolation. But I think going forward, people should actually realize that they should leave their isolation. Yeah, and we should all come together as gig workers, regardless of the platform that you're working on. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, when you were mentioning, I was actually even writing that down, that the effects can be quite risky to even the mental health, to the mental health space of the workers in the space. Because, I mean, maybe you started when you were young, then you realized that this thing is sustainable.
Yeah.
And then, for example, I know we mentioned it somewhere in the conversation, content moderators, the kind of things that you have to see on the internet could mess up with you, but you have no human touch to tell, like a HR, that can I take a break? You know, I need to decompress. So if you decide to do that by yourself, you're out of work, that means your hours have gone down. I think mental health is a fundamental element in this ecosystem. As we work on the policies, how important is it that this is factored in? Because, you know, when you lose a job, it affects you. You can no longer meet your wants and needs. I mean, the kind of content you go through, the harassments that are there. I've just thought about the element of consideration for mental health and just taking care of that front in the ecosystem.
Yeah, so actually mental health it's a big problem, especially for content moderators and content creators as well. So because the kind of work that content moderators do, the kind of content that they come across it's so sensitive, yeah, if I may say, because people see live murders, yeah, murders and rape cases, even child molestations. And in as much as, yes, it's the work that they are doing, but you see, for you to label that these kind of content should not go into the For You pages, you have to see.
You've consumed
yeah,
it
you've
already.
consumed it,
Yeah.
but now they're not given support. I'd say psychosocial support. Yeah. Well, some companies do, but you see the minutes that they are given, they don't match the damage that is done. So yeah, mental health. And then for content creators, they have this, I'd call it a like effect. Yeah, where if you're a content creator, you have to get likes. That is the only way that you are visible. Yeah, that is the only way that your content makes sense. So you have to always work to get likes and keep creating content and posting regularly. Like, you just have to be online, yeah, for you to be visible, I'd say, to consumers of your content. So that means that if you take a break,
you snooze, you lose.
Yeah, you snooze, you lose. You get a shadow ban where your content is not visible to people. Yeah. So that really affects someone's mental health, because first of all, you don't get rest. Yeah, you don't get rest, and then the obsession over likes. So when you don't get likes, you're depressed.
You can look at it as not having impact on the ground.
Yeah, and then the psychosocial effects. They are not occupational hazards in the list of occupational hazards in Kenya. That is not part of them, but it is a very big thing in the digital space. So I think going forward, even as the policies are being formulated, the policymakers should really look into that. Yeah.
I think as we come to the culmination of this conversation, we now bring in the importance of why you're even sitting here in this podcast is the element of the formation of the union, the Kenya Union of Gig Workers. Again, we will highlight that there are people who are out there thinking they're just on their own. This is my hustle. This is what I do. And they have no element of belonging, because I think in African democracies, Ubuntu has carried us, you are because someone else is here. So please tell us the importance of joining, for example, Kenya Union of Gig Workers, and how the understanding of that space works for and the advocacy that you do.
Yeah, so I'd say first of all, the workers in this space, they really don't understand what a union is, or they don't see the essence of a union. Because I think growing up, we'd see, like, you just hear of unions, they just exist, but you don't know exactly what it is that they
The
do.
one we know was, I think, Coupet
And
for
NAT.
teachers and
Famous for calling strikes.
yes.
But also we don't understand why those strikes are being called. Yeah, so actually, I'd say at the bare minimum, the work of a union is to secure, promote, and protect the interest and the well-being of a worker. Yeah, so that's our bare minimum mandate. Yeah, so the reason why I would urge digital platform workers in Kenya, or anyone just in the gig economy in Kenya, to join KUGWO is because, in as much as KUGWO is a worker-centered union, there's no much that you can do if you don't have the numbers. So it's you to come tell us your case. You come tell us your case. We get the evidence that we need to go to these platforms. We get the evidence also and the challenges that you have, that even if we get a seat at those round tables, what then are we going to present? Yeah, so we really need the input of the people themselves. Yeah.
And that is by coming and joining in numbers.
Yes.
A quick one. Sometimes individually it can be hard to access some of these employers or opportunity providers. When we come to KUGO as a union, do you then have access to, for example, the most notorious one I could mention maybe is like Bolt, Does the union have access for leverage of conversation with the platforms?
So you see, according to the laws of Kenya, once you have, let's say we have 20,000 Uber drivers in Kenya. So once the union has membership of a simple majority of those members, we are mandated, and the platforms are also required by law to recognize the union as the representative of those workers. So whatever issues they'll have, as long as we have a simple majority of them and we are recognized by the platform, we can sit down with them and have conversations.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's a powerful place to recognize the efforts that go into it. Finally, our conversation today was to try and look at terms of engagement in these different platforms, and how do we then navigate the space around knowing what you should do, and that is where we started off. As a union, do you help, let's even say beginners, when they come, to unpack the 19-pager kind of contract? Because I think we will finish the conversation from this is the elephant in the room. We have jargons, we have bulk papers, we have all that. What role does the union play in helping the layman who is getting into this space have an understanding of the contracts?
Yeah, so we have a legal department, yeah, that does that. So they review contracts, then they, of course, point out the gray areas or where the loopholes are. But as I had said, the biggest problem is actually not the reviewing, because yes, I can read and explain to you, but then after that, what next? Because yes, you need the job and the contract is exploitative, but there's no one to go to discuss the terms of these contracts. So I think that's really the biggest challenge that we have. Not even the clauses in the contracts, because if there was somewhere that we could go and have discussions over the terms of the contracts, that would be better.
Okay.
Yeah.
As we now wind up the conversation, because clearly we've said it, there's a bit of work to be done. There's some catching up to do.
Yeah.
What is your parting shot, even as we try to patch together this 360 view and hope for a better unfolding of the future? What's your parting shot, even as you operate in this space?
So, my parting shots would be, I think, to the people in this space, like the only way that we are going to get policies that favor us and that actually work for us is only if we come together, have one voice. That voice is what will give us power to enter into these rooms and influence the policies that we want. And also urge our government, if it's actually listening, that in whatever policies that you're going to formulate for gig workers and the gig space, just make sure that we have the voices of the gig workers at the center, because I believe the policies are supposed to help the problems that we already have. But if you don't understand what problems already exist, then we'll just have policies for the sake of having policies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dorothy, for joining us today. And I think a good place to leave it is even with AI, we're still playing catch up. But I think as policy formulators, we are seeing our government officials coming together to put bills and put together policies. And it begs the question, if at all we understand the policies that we are formulating, because some of those documents have even been copy-pasted from AI tools already, and it beats the whole purpose. And you really wonder then if those are our representatives, this future we are fighting for, if it's absolute or if it's concrete that it will come. But thank you so much for joining us today. I know we will be having more of these conversations, and we will keep whistle blowing until we are able to get into spaces where we now have change. Thank you for joining us. Again, when we come together and join our voices, then we can influence policies and we can make changes. And unions like Kenya Union of Gig Workers, KUGWO, is meant to secure, promote, and protect our rights. And for that to happen, we must play our responsibility in the system and in the process. And here at Speak Up Afrika, we continue to bring you conversations that aim to inform, engage, and empower. And these are the tools that we give you to make better informed decisions for a better future. Thank you for joining us in this episode. My name is Wendy Loyce. For now, I will love you and leave you, and I will see you in the next one. Kwaheri.